Hello friends, welcome back to another exciting video on my YouTube channel. First of all, I would like to apologize that I could not upload the video during last few weeks because I was focusing on renewing the SSL certificate for my set of applications which me and my team support. And that gives me an opportunity to come up with this video where would be a refreshing concept or understanding how SSL works. And that's what is today's video about. If you are new to this YouTube channel, I basically try to share my knowledge on DevOps tools like Git, Jenkins, and the cloud certifications like AWS CCP, which is a cloud certified cloud uh, practitioners certificate, as well as Azure cloud fundamentals, Azure data fundamentals, and lot of things about it. In my current playlist, currently we are focusing on learning the Terraforms and how it can be an essential for your day-to-day activities. So that's one of the items going on in my current playlist. And if you think all these what I have discussed or what I'm mentioning has added value to your skill set, do not forget to hit a like button and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever I upload such a knowledgeable video on my YouTube channel. So without much further delay, in today's video, we are going to talk about what is SSL, types of SSL encryption, why SSL is important, and how these SSL encryption works with a small demo with a diagram. So without much further delay, let's get to the main content of the video, which is SSL concept. So friends, let's learn what is SSL. So SSL is known as a secure socket layer. This layer is used to securely communicate over the internet. It does by encrypting the communication data between the 2 points. And let's read the next line where you will understand what I mean to say. In other words, SSL encrypts the link between the web server and the browser, which ensures that all data passed between them remains private and free from attack. So a very simple example, when you try to access www.icicbank.com. In this case, we are taking an example of ICICI Bank, where this web URL has the SSL certificate installed on it. And it has an expiry date and the issuer date when it was done. And this SSL certificate is given by certificate authority. So when you enter your username and the password, that data is private and it's in the encrypted format. Nowadays, we have something called as a one-time password, which is sent on your mobile, on your registered email ID. It can be sent on WhatsApp, and that is private to you. So when you enter that information into the URL, and that information is private and no one knows about it, and that information when reaches to the web server, it will get decrypted. Right now it's encrypted format. When the web server reads it, it will get decrypted and it will allow you to log in. So that's a very simple explanation. That's where the link happens between the web server and the browser. So why SSL is important? As I mentioned, the authentication, the integrity of the data, public and private key cryptography. So to do this link establishment and make sure the data is private, everything is good, it uses a cryptography concept of public and private key. Session management, right? Remember it, once you log in, you are into a session, and if you do not access it, then do not access more than 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it will log out you, and to make sure that no one other access that URL. the fourth one is encryption, as I mentioned, right? And the last one is certificate of authority, right? So all these SSL certificate are issued by certificate of authority, and that they take care of the expiry date, the issuance date, and it will has a lot of information which you would be seeing in next bit. So SSL certificate contains following information, which is domain name, certificate of authority, assurance date, expiry date, public key, SSL TLS protocol version, right? So every SSL certificate would have some version, and it gets incremented after every 2 years kind of thing. So expiry date of the SSL is basically 2 to 3 years, and every year you need to after every 2 years or 3 years you need to renew that certificate to make sure when you transfer the data between web browser and the web server, it is encrypted and it's private. So that's what the SSL works like. Now let's understand the types of SSL encryption. So there are two types of SSL encryption. One is symmetric, one is asymmetric. Let's understand from theoretical perspective, and then I'm going to have a demo session where I'm going to basically make you understand how asymmetric and symmetric works with the help of diagram, right? So let's first understand asymmetric. In this method, we use public and private key combination. Don't worry, I'm going to explain that in with the help of diagram, right? What is public and private key? Let's get into our next slide, where the private key can be used to decode a ciphertext which was encoded using a public key, and a vice versa. In a practical scenario, sender would use the public key of the receiver to encrypt the data, and the receiver use its private key to decrypt the received text. So that's how basically the public and private key combination works. Don't worry, we are going to look into a demo session where I'm going to explain this with the help of diagram. Now let's move to the next encryption, which is a symmetric encryption. In this method, only one key which encrypts and decrypts the data. So in this case, we are not using a public and private key combination. We are just using one key which will encrypt and which will at the same time decrypt the data. And both receiver and sender would have this key, and it is only known to them. So it uses certain kind of algorithms, which are AES-128, AES-192, and AES-256. So that's what are the types of encryption, and we learned about what is SSL, why it is important. Now let's get into our demo session in a bit. I hope until now you have got an idea of what SSL certificate information contain, what is SSL, why it's important, and finally we have touched base on types of SSL encryption. So without much further delay, let's get into the demo with a diagram in a bit. So friends, before we get into the depth of it, I wanted you to have a quick walkthrough about what we were talking about SSL stuff in a theoretical way. So I'm trying to access an icicibank.com, and if you see here, the connection is secure. So once I click on it, it says the certificate is valid. So that means it has a valid SSL certificate. So once I click on that, I can see the details. So the certification was issued by Interest Certification Authority. They are responsible for issuing the certificate, and they take care of everything. And it has an organization which is interest.inc. The company name is if you see here, issued to www.ic ICICIbank.com. When it was issued on April 18, 2024. It has the expiry date of May 17, 2025. And if you see what kind of encryption it's using, so it is SHA-256, and it has a public key as well. And if we go into a more details, so we got who has issued what version. It is using an version 3, and it has a serial number, it has a certificate, signature and logarithm. uh, you will find lot of information when you go to the detail. So that's what basically I was trying to explain in a theoretical way, that a certification authority is responsible for issuing the SSL certificate with the details like domain name, what we talked about. We have the public key, we have the issued on, expires on. So these are the details. Now, with in next few seconds, we will be going, or I would be walking through a demo session with a simple example between the web browser and the server. So without much further delay, let's get into our demo session. So friends, let's understand this with a simple diagram, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a demo how does SSL works, right? So this, for an example, consider this is our web browser, and this web browser can be a Chrome, Edge, anything. And I am basically establishing a connection with a server where any server, say any web server, where I am sending an hello message. Okay. Now, once the server receives this hello message, it will respond back to me with an server hello. But at the same time, this will be sending me an SSL certificate to my web browser. Now, once I receive this SSL certificate, my web browser is going to validate the domain name. Okay, bear with my handwriting, but it will validate the where domain name, who has issued this, which in our case would be certificate of authority, what is the date when it was issued, what is an expiry date. At the same time, it will have a public key. Remember, I showed you the public key when we checked whether it has. So once this has all necessary information, my web browser will then send a key. um, it will encrypt this information and send a public key, okay, which to the server. And once the server has received this public key, it has a private key at its end where it will validate the response from the web server and the key which I have sent in the encrypted format to the server. Once this information is done, finally I will get the response what I am requesting it. So at on this is where the server will send me for the information which I have requested, and this completes the whole transaction of SSL. So that's where how the SSL works. And this is very important when you're dealing with the sensitive information. Like for an example, you log into amazon.com or amazon.in, where you have enter your username and details. At the same time, you have enter the, after once you have selected the items you want to purchase, you enter your credit card information, which has the credit card number, security code number, expiry date number. So that's how this whole information is very sensitive. And when it goes to the Amazon server, it should be an encrypted format so that no one in between the transit access that information, and it's private to your session. So that's where basically we are establishing an SSL here to make sure that the information transmitted from web browser to this web server is in the encrypted format. And if you don't have an SSL certificate, you are at a risk. You would might be attacked by an hacker where your information can be stolen, and you can have the you need to basically then bear the consequences of it. So I hope this session was useful and it gave an overview about what is SSL, how it works with this small diagram, to make a better understanding of it. So if you have liked this video, do share with your friends and do not forget to hit a like button and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever I upload such information. Until then, take care. Bye bye.